Hello, friends. Today is all about gratitude, all about flowing into the weekend with some positive perspective. We've made it through another week, and there's a lot going on in our lives, a lot that we're trying to understand, a lot that we're trying to balance. So I'm hoping that by now you are able to write easier, more freely, trusting in the process and what it brings. And I'm also hoping that you are able to hear that gentle, quiet, positive voice in your head a little bit easier. And this is, as I mentioned, a practice. And over time, you will recognize that as your intuitive thinking, as the connection that you're making when you're on the page. And for some of us, it's very difficult to think as far as positivity, as positive. And if that's the case, I'd like to invite you to think of one thing that you can identify for yourself, about yourself. It doesn't have to be a physical attribute. It could be something along the lines of personality or a compliment that you've heard in the past that people shared with you about you. That's always a wonderful thing to recall when things seem a little bit difficult and dark. So think of that, and also think about things that have happened. For example, has anything made you laugh this week? A show, perhaps. There's so many creative shows out there. I'm just in awe of all the good programming. And if you're fortunate enough to have a pet, what kind of feeling does the pet provide? This unconditional love is just pretty amazing, and one of the wonderful benefits about having a pet, if you have one. I don't, and I really wish during a time like this, well, I mean, who knew, right? But boy, I'd be hugging that thing all the time. So that's something positive. So I'd like to share this time so we can practice thinking positively, and those messages that come to us, because they do, and they come in interesting times throughout our day. You can simply recognize it. Okay, there it is again, that negative thought. And then it's as easy as saying, you know what, I no longer believe you and I no longer need you. I know that sounds foolish. I know it sounds easier said than done. And at first, yeah, it is. But the more you do this, especially if you put the positive flip side of those messages that we've internalized, when you put those somewhere where you can see them every day, it's almost like you turn on a light switch. And you don't even have to read it. That's the miracle of how the brain, this miraculous organ that we have, works. You can just see it and say, oh, I know what I wrote there. And what happens is you start little by little to reprogram yourself. Because we were programmed to think certain things that are holding us back, right? We were programmed. Those weren't our thoughts or intentions. They were put there by society, by a sustained repeating of it by someone in our lives, and perhaps unintentionally. But we do have the power to override that by flipping it to a positive truth about ourselves and putting it where we can see it. And as we become used to seeing this positive attribute and just simply dismissing the negative one, we start to fill ourselves with the belief, and psychologically it's effective at reprogramming how we think about ourselves. So I hope that this weekend brings you a little fun, peace out of we're in this creative space where we can do things differently. I've actually had people in the workshop, girls go home and write these positive messages in a heart shape with their mothers, for example, or their fathers, and the whole family get involved. Post-its are a really wonderful forgiving thing to put on your wall without making any damage. So you can create a heart shape and fill it with all these positive thoughts. How cool would that be to walk by that every day and just get a kick out of it, So, and that's something that you can involve everybody in doing. So I wanted to leave you with that and spend a few minutes writing and just thinking along the lines of, what am I grateful for? What am I grateful for? It could be something so simple. Let's recognize those things, because too often we think about things in a negative light. Let's change that. We have the power to do that. Here we go.